You want to come talk with me about one of my favorite patient care topics to treat? That's ADHD. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disease. We could go back and we could do a Throwback Thursday episode about this too. Yes, it used to be called ADD. Yes, we used to only diagnose it in kids. Yes, and yes, and yes, and is what we're going to talk about tonight. Sorry my face is so shiny. It's hour 17 of my day today. I don't have a filter. I'm too tired to care. Deal with the shine. So, ADHD. Are more people getting diagnosed with it? Yeah, I think so. Should we have diagnosed some of these folks decades ago when they were younger, girls especially? 1000%, no question in my mind, we missed the diagnosis for them. What happens with ADHD is one of two things. Either you bounce off the walls in school and the teachers tell your parents, this kid has ADD, get them on medication, or girls in particular, girls usually this is what happens, they internalize the issues that they're having. Or they're flighty, they're chatty, they're social, and they're these little social butterflies that aren't getting their work done because they're chatting with everybody. Or they're internalizing their stress and their frustration and their fear of not being able to get done what needs to get done in life. And so they're quiet and introspective and a fly on the wall in the corner, and they don't get the attention that they need. So for kids, when we're making a diagnosis of ADHD, there are standard protocols that we follow. One of those is what's called the Vanderbilt testing method. I'll have to look at what the actual name is. I just call it the Vanderbilt. I don't know, I'm sorry. So it's a set of questions that parental figures of the kid get, typically from your pediatrician or your family practice provider, whoever that is. And a copy goes to your kids' teachers. Your kids' teacher should be expecting it since they were the ones that told you your kid's got ADD and they need to be medicated. So this combination of piles of paperwork for the parents and the teachers comes back to primary care, and primary care is able to decently diagnose kids. That diagnosis can progress with your child throughout their entire life. You do not technically ever grow out of ADHD. What happens is, hopefully, medication slows the messaging center of your brain down enough that the processing center can keep up. And that's the goal of medicine. Our goal is to not make you a zombie. Our goal is to not make you so on task and tuned in that you take over the world and become Superman. Our goal is to make your life functional. You have a thought, you know what to do with it. You have a thought, you know what to do with it. That, in combination with behavioral health interventions, is the gold standard for ADHD treatment. Do not just assume taking medicine will cure you. You need a health coach or a psychologist or a counselor or a psychiatrist if you can find one. You need somebody in your corner helping direct lifestyle interventions for you moving forward. There are some online companies that do a good job with the health coaching aspect or the counseling aspect. I really like Attitude, the company, ADD-itude. They have a magazine, so if the printed word works for you, it can come in the mail. They have an online format that they're constantly making updates to. And they have great resources if your child is newly diagnosed with ADD. What do you need to do for them to be successful in school? So Attitude is a great resource, online, printed option. but not the be all end all. You really need a health coach or somebody in your corner helping you coordinate. How do I make a schedule? How do I have a list? How do I remind myself every day when I come home? I put my keys in the same exact spot so that when I'm ready to go tomorrow, I know where my keys are. What about my wallet? What about my watch? Wallet, watch, and keys. Where are they? Can I find them tomorrow before I walk out the door? Health coaching helps coordinate all of that for you. Medicine is good. It's not the be all end all. You need health coaches in whatever format you're able to find that person. So you get the diagnosis. You're interested in medicine. What does that mean? Did you get the diagnosis? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you skimmed through. You were super smart. You passed. You were involved in sports. You had behavioral life interventions from your parents or your family or your support network to be able to be successful without medication. And now you're slammed into this, oh my gosh, my world is falling apart. What's happening to me? Congratulations, you've got ADHD. And probably one or maybe some combination of 4 things is happening. You got a new job or a job promotion. You're going to school, whether that's college or back to grad school. You moved, or you've got changes in family dynamics. You've got a new fur baby, or something has upset the apple cart where your stereotypical routine for life is different. And those seem to be the big 4 items that I see for folks, that life was fine and then one or some combo of these 4 things happened and now life is chaotic and they need help. That's not bad. That's okay. If medicine is a helpful tool to get you through the hump of this new change and time of life so that you can create new habits and new routines, great. Let's get you on medicine. Let's help that brain be a little bit quieter so that you can learn and master the new you. Who didn't get diagnosed? Probably girls. Sorry. Especially late Gen X, early millennials. Girls, because they had anxiety and depression that overlapped with their ADHD, they were sent off down the path of, you have anxiety, let's treat that, or you have depression, let's treat that. And you may or may not have been treated for decades for anxiety and depression, when the real culprit to your symptoms and the underlying thing that we need to treat is your ADHD. So if you come to see me newly diagnosed with ADHD and you're like, I've had these years of anxiety and depression medicines and nothing's really worked that great and I'm so frustrated and what do I need to do next? I'm happy to help. Anxiety, depression, perimenopausal symptoms, insomnia, chaos of the world that we're living in. We can take care of all of that, but those medicines typically take a while to start working. So let's put that on the back burner if we could. If you've got, today we need intervention or the end of the world is coming, then we're going to intervene for you. But if it's a long-standing, haven't had good success with treatment, let's put that on pause. Let's not rock the boat. Let's not make changes. Let's take care of your ADHD. When your ADHD is controlled and you feel less frazzled and more on top of life, your anxiety and depression should get better. If it gets better enough for you that we can start tapering off some of those medicines, great. If it doesn't get better enough and we need more medicine to help treat those, great. Let's partner with you. Let's make that happen. But ADHD treatment typically is a lot faster than some of these other treatments. So let's treat your ADHD and then take care of whatever else is happening for you. So you've been diagnosed, you've looked into figuring out how to get some kind of behavioral health support, you've looked into apps, you've gone onto Pinterest, you've done all the things, and now what? You come to me or one of my colleagues across the country and we believe in adult onset, adult diagnosis, ADHD. Let's talk about medication. Can medication be a helpful tool? Yes. Are there times when medication is not a helpful tool? Absolutely. Are there certain scenarios where we need to tweak things based on the circumstance? 1000%. Let's kind of dig into all of that and talk about different details. So if you come to me and say, either for yourself or your child, medication makes sense from an ADHD perspective, great. Let's talk about how many hours of focus and attention would be helpful. What other medications are they on? Do other family members have ADHD? Has a tendency to run in families, and medications that help treat ADHD also have a tendency to run in families. Not just siblings or parents, but first cousins. So if your child needs medication and you're frustrated and overwhelmed and don't know where to start, but their cousin is on a medicine and doing really well, let's talk about that. Let's get the full picture of who you are genetically and what's happening in the bigger scheme of things that maybe we can impact your care or your child's care based on somebody else in the family being the guinea pig for medication. So we want medication. You haven't been on it in the past. You haven't tried your friends at college and study hall. You don't have family members that are on medicine. We're starting from scratch. You don't come with some preordained idea that social media influenced you on. How do we kind of sort through what medicine to give you, when to give it, how to give it? It's absolutely situational, and it's absolutely cost, if we're honest. I've said this in other postings. I didn't used to write for a lot of Vyvanse because when it was only brand and it was $500 a month, I could not justify in my own conscience sending people to the pharmacy for a medicine that will cost $500 a month for their focus. There were other things on the market that worked really well and didn't cost a ton of money, and maybe it wasn't as convenient as a once-a-day medicine. Now that Vyvanse is generic and not so expensive, I think that's a great medicine, and let's try it and let's do it in certain situations. It's not always the first medicine I go to, because in that tier system of how much your medicine should cost you when you go to pick it up, Vyvanse is still a higher tier than generic Adderall. So let's walk through kind of my thought process for you and your loved one for prescriptions for your ADHD. There's two buckets of medicine that we use to help treat ADHD: stimulants and non-stimulants. Non-stimulants are things like Quellbri, Strattera, Wellbutrin, Intuniv, Guanfacine, and they work really well in certain situations. I've had a handful of folks that just can't tolerate stimulants, and Quellbri has worked well for them. I've got some cops who have drug dog partners, so they can't smell like a stimulant all day long. They can't run around and the dog smells Adderall on them all day long. We have to use something different. Intuniv works well for situations like that. If you've got chronic bad underlying anxiety or some blood pressure that's not quite well controlled enough, Intuniv or Guanfacine works well to treat a couple issues. Baby doses helps with ADHD. Moderate doses helps with some PTSD and some situational onset panic attacks. High doses, it's an old medicine that we used to use a lot for out of control blood pressure. And so if you as the patient have multiple issues happening, not just you're a cop with a drug dog partner, but you've got some anxiety or some PTSD or some blood pressure that I'm not super happy with, Intuniv might be the route that I go for you. Strattera or atomoxetine, again, is an old school medicine, been around for a long time, has a lot of evidence behind it that it works well. And they use it for kids in situations where I'm concerned about the social setting that they are in. I don't want to ever place children at risk based on the medicines that I'm writing for them. And if I don't totally trust the random people that are coming through your house and don't trust that the child's medicine won't walk away if I write a stimulant, Strattera or atomoxetine is where I typically start. I want your kid to have focus, but I don't want their medicines to get stolen by random people walking through your house. And if I'm concerned about that, I'm going to start treatment with Strattera. Some people don't want stimulants. They've got a long family history of addiction, and instead of starting with stimulants, they're like, let me try something else. Great, let's try some Strattera. There are certain situations where we have maxed out your ability to have a safe dose of stimulant, and you still don't have the focus that you want and you need. So what do? I write lower doses of Strattera as kind of an adjunct, an add-on, an additive to help your body potentially absorb more of the stimulant, cover those areas in your brain that need medication to help you focus. And so Strattera is something that you should be familiar with. Strattera is the brand, atomoxetine is the generic, and it floats around, not just in situations where we don't trust your family members to not steal your kids' meds, but in other situations as well. The frustrating part for most folks with non-stimulant medicines is that they work best if you take them every single day. So you can't just take them on days where you need focus and attention. You can't take them as needed, PRN. You have to take them day in and day out. And they take a little bit of time to start working. It can take somewhere between 2 to 5 weeks of taking them to really notice a benefit to your focus. Usually by the time I see adults, they're like, I don't have another 5 weeks to wait around and hope that my medicine starts helping my focus. I'm desperate, I need something faster. So for adults, I have a tendency to start treatment with stimulants. So the stimulant bucket of medicines are things like Concerta, Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse, Zenzetti. All of those have a specific place, and as I'm talking to you, trying to understand your day in, day out, work day, school day, day off day, social life, what are you trying to do? When is focus important for you? Those questions are not because I want to know the intimate details of your daily life. I don't care. You can go to coffee with your friends 7 days a week, and that's all you accomplish? Great. Let's help you focus in that conversation while you're at coffee with your friends. If you're juggling more than just coffee with your friends, let's talk. What else is happening? What else would medication benefit you from? And are there situations in your life where medicine would not be good for you? It would be worse for you than if you didn't have medicine. That's what I'm trying to sort through as I'm asking all these invasive personal questions of your life, day to day. Routine life, what's happening? How sensitive to medicine are you? I ask that not because I don't trust you. I ask that because the methylphenidate medicines are a little bit less potent than the amphetamine salt medications. And so if you lick a Benadryl and then go sleep for 3 days, I don't want to blast you with more medicine that's going to make life miserable for you. I'll probably give you some kind of methylphenidate medicine. Methylphenidate medicines I use a lot for kids as I'm just starting treatment, especially if you come to me and the diagnosis is those Vanderbilt forms. And probably your child is probably young enough, and in need of a less potent medicine. So let's try some Ritalin, let's try some Concerta. And again, what we do is based off of what your child can do. Do you have a support system at school? Can there be a registered nurse to be able to administer their medicine for them? If there's not, long-acting Concerta makes more sense than short-acting Ritalin. Concerta takes about an hour or so to kick in and lasts 9 to 12 hours based on your metabolism. Ritalin takes about half an hour to kick in. Ritalin long-acting is a different story, and maybe we'll talk about that some other time. But immediate release Ritalin kicks in about half an hour, lasts about 4 to 6 hours, and can be taken multiple times a day. But if your child doesn't have the support network at school to take multiple doses per day, it's not going to happen. That's not realistic. I'm not going to prescribe that. The other methylphenidate medicine that I really like, especially for high schoolers and college kids, is Jornay PM. And again, it's a little bit more expensive. It's not a tier 1 medicine for most insurances, so we have to kind of jump through some hoops to get there. But Jornay is really nice in that you take it at bedtime. It slowly gets absorbed down lower in your gut, so that when your alarm goes off at 3 in the morning and you roll out of bed, your medicine has kicked in if you took it early enough last night. So for people that really struggle to get out of bed and get going with the day, Jornay PM makes a ton of sense. It's well tolerated. It's no longer so expensive that I can't justify prescribing it for folks. So that's kind of the methylphenidate class of medicines. Then we have the amphetamine salt medications. So Adderall extended release, Adderall immediate release, and then Zenzetti is kind of where I would classify that. If you look at medicines overarchingly internationally, there are certain countries where you can't get prescriptions for other medicines. So I've had some students over the years that come from Australia and New Zealand, and they've been on Zenzetti and done well successfully on that particular medication at home, and then they come to the US and they would like Zenzetti. Zenzetti in the US is really hard to get a hold of. So we try and then we make accommodations. If you are here temporarily as a visiting professor and you want to start medication for the first time in your life and you plan on going back to Western Europe in the next school year, I probably won't start you on Adderall. I'll probably go the methylphenidate route. Methylphenidate is easier to get a hold of in a lot of the European countries, and there are certain Asian countries where you can only have methylphenidate. If you're traveling to Japan as an American tourist with ADHD, you cannot take Adderall into the country. We need an exception prescription for methylphenidate medicines for you to take the medicine with you on your trip. You're paying a lot of money to get there. You're gonna travel a while to get there. You're expecting a phenomenal experience. Let's let your brain be quiet enough so that you can have an amazing time and enjoy that and be present. Take the correct medicine with you when you go. So, amphetamine salt medications. Adderall, extended and immediate, Zenzetti. I think Medeus is Adderall equivalent to. Hold please, let me Google that. Yeah, Medeus is an amphetamine salt. So Medeus is a 3-level. Medeus is also an amphetamine salt medication brand name. It's a tri-level instead of a dual level like extended release. So Medeus kicks in a little bit faster, lasts a little bit longer, lasts a little bit longer. frustrating part with Medeas that I've heard from a handful of folks is as one layer of medicine is wearing off, the next layer hasn't kicked in quite enough and there's a little bit of a dip. Some people though like the longer hours that Medeas provides, and so they're like, I'll deal with the dips. During the dips I'll eat my meals, or I'll answer an email that I don't need to use my brain so much for, or I'll go for a walk. And so Medeas is also one of the Medeas is a amphetamine salt medication. And again, used to be crazy expensive, not so terrible now. People are not trying to figure out, do I need to go donate blood this month? Do I need to go donate plasma this month to be able to afford this medicine? So outside of Medeas and that 3-level medication that should give you hours and hours and hours of focus, Adderall, we'll just talk about Adderall. Extended and immediate. Extended release is like Concerta. Takes about an hour or so to kick in. Lasts about 9 to 12 hours based on your metabolism. Usually is only taken once a day. Immediate Adderall, again like Ritalin, kicks in about half an hour or so after you take it. And by kick in, I mean people tell me, I can start to focus. I can sit down, I can answer my emails, I can work on the budget, I can remember to take my laundry out of the washing machine and put it in the dryer. Those types of things are what I mean by kick in. It's not typically like a quad shot of coffee where you chug it and then you're like, oh, now I have palpitations and a headache and I want to go scrub the grout with a toothbrush. That's not the goal. If that's what's happening with your medicine, we need to talk. Things are not good and we need to make adjustments. Kick in should not be scrub the grout with a toothbrush. So depending on the needs of your day and the needs of your life, extended release might make sense, immediate release might make sense, or a combination of those might make sense. Same thing with methylphenidate for Concerta and Ritalin. There are days where Concerta might make sense. There are days when immediate release Ritalin might make sense. There are days when a combination might make sense. Days like today where it's going on a crazy hour of I don't even know who I am or where I am half the time. Crazy days like today, it might make sense that multiple doses of medicine would be available. Does that mean you start the day with an extended release, and if you've got an 18-hour day, you've got an immediate release booster so that you can have continued focus and be able to get to sleep when that immediate release wears off? Maybe, hopefully, that's the goal. Does it make sense to just have an immediate release if you're getting together with your friends for brunch on Saturday? Maybe. Or if you're getting together with a neighborhood barbecue on Sunday, maybe you only need immediate. You had immediate to get through the grocery list and the grocery store and the barbecue, and life was good. You didn't need a long amount of focus and attention with an extended release. Then there are folks that need extended release plus day in and day out, and that's where Vyvanse comes in real handy. Vyvanse brand should, in theory, give you 16 hours of focus and attention. Generic, maybe not quite so much. And generic, the feedback I get from most patients is it's not a steady state the whole entire time. It can dip a little bit halfway through the day. But again, people are like, I know when the dip is coming. I go for my lunch walk and I am hungry and I eat my lunch and I just move on with my day. So Vyvanse, the medicine, is helpful particularly for a handful of things. One of those things is binge eating disorder. We find that about 40% of folks who have ADHD also have binge eating disorder. And you are not an awful person if for your ADHD you have self-medicated with chips or cookies or alcohol or tobacco products. We sort of expect you've tried something else. And that's one of the reasons I like to try to get kids with ADHD on medication that is a prescription when they're diagnosed. I don't want your kid experimenting with cocaine or amphetamine or tons of food or tons of alcohol to try to quiet their brain down. I prefer that they have some stability in their focus from a prescription medicine where we know they're not going to end up with an accidental fentanyl overdose because they were self-medicating their ADHD with something else. So let's try to get your kid on treatment for their long-term safety. If you have experimented with some of those other things, that does not make you a bad human. That makes you somebody that needed a treatment that wasn't an option for you. If it's an option now, let's take care of it. Vyvanse is FDA approved to treat ADHD and binge eating disorder. What that means is if you've been diagnosed with both, it is significantly easier for me to convince your insurance company to pay for Vyvanse instead of some of these other medications because you've got those two diagnoses. So if you're going to a provider and you're like, I have binge eating disorder and ADHD, make sure that you mention the binge eating disorder. It can change our treatment plan for you. All of the rest of the stimulants do help quiet down some of the areas in your brain that are addiction centers for other things. And could your alcohol intake decrease, your food noise for chocolate decrease if we get your ADHD under control? Yeah, but Vyvanse has been shown to be able to do that. And so binge eating disorder and ADHD is one time where I think it makes a lot of sense. Let's try some Vyvanse. I use Vyvanse for other certain situations beyond just needing 16 hours of focus day in and day out. Vyvanse works really well for people who cannot tolerate breakfast or are hardcore intermittent fasters. If you come to me and you say, I only eat between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. every day, don't argue with me. That is all I'm doing. I will have my water and my electrolytes and do what I need to do, but that is when I eat. Those folks don't typically do well with other extended release medication options. Extended release and an empty stomach causes a lot of nausea. So if you're a hardcore intermittent faster, I'm more likely to write Vyvanse for you. So if you come to me and you say, hey, I have ADHD and I want to try medicine and I'm an intermittent faster, let me know. That's helpful in guiding what kind of care I'm going to provide and offer to you. If you are a hardcore exerciser, God bless you. I will not be joining you, but I will try to support you with Vyvanse. So if you come to me and say, on my lunch break, I want to go for a 15-mile bike ride, and on the weekends, I ride between 50 and 70 miles, your metabolism is so crazy high compared to the general population that's sitting at a desk all day, Vyvanse works better for you. If you say, I go and I exercise on my lunch break, and then when I get back, I can't focus, let's try some Vyvanse. Vyvanse has been amazing in that people can exercise and not have decreased effectiveness in their stimulant after the exercise. So that's kind of the overview of my initial thought process. How many hours of focus and attention do you need? Are you sensitive to medicines? And are there situations in your life where I need to make adjustments, stimulant versus non-stimulant, Vyvanse versus short-acting Ritalin? And so we factor all those things in, factor in, are you just here on a visiting professorship and I need to try out medicines that you can get at home when you get home, versus are you here as a college student and what you use at home I can't get here, so we got to make that adjustment. All those things are happening in the back of my mind. What I find for folks who have ADHD, if we go down the stimulant route, it takes about 4 or 5 days of taking the medicine to notice a positive impact and benefit for your focus. Does that mean that you won't have benefit day one? No. And that's usually when people are volunteering their pills in high school or college. Don't do that. Don't take somebody else's prescriptions. Just come see us, get your own. But if you've tried somebody else's and it worked well, let us know that information as well. Because if you were on Ritalin as a kid and it worked really well and then you quit taking it when you were 13 and now you're 39, we could restart Ritalin if you want, but you might do better with Adderall. So again, kids typically I write for methylphenidate medicines. They're less potent. I want kids to be hungry and eat, and I want them to be tired and go to bed. And methylphenidate helps coordinate that by and large. Unfortunately, what has a tendency to happen is kind of that middle school hormonal change, rage fest time of life. Ritalin can make those symptoms worse in some kids. And if that's your kid, don't be miserable, don't be scared. Let's figure this out. Let's talk about and consider transitioning them to Adderall instead. The flip side to that is, ladies, sorry, we're in this perimenopause time of life and hormones start raging again and chaos happens. Sometimes if you've been on Adderall for years and years and years and you wake up one day and you're like, this is not working, what is the problem? It might be that hormonal chaos again, and it might be worth trying methylphenidate medicines again to see if your focus can get back where we need it to be, and if so, great. The other thing I want you to kind of keep in mind is that GLP-1 medicines play best with methylphenidate medicines. So if you start a prescription or a compounded GLP-1 medication, great. I love that for you. It's not just good for weight loss and diabetes and cholesterol and blood pressure and sleep apnea and addiction centers, whether that's tobacco or alcohol. It's helpful to get rid of extra fat in your liver and help your body be able to care for itself longer term. So there's lots of evidence for these medications saying that they probably should be some type of baseline treatment for lots of conditions, and I look forward to the day when we can do a throwback Thursday and we can be like, remember what life was like before GLP-1s weren't the first medicine that we used to treat all of the things? So they're great medicines. I'm a huge fan. However, if your Adderall or whatever else you're on isn't working well since you started GLP-1s, consider switching to methylphenidate medicines. There is actually published literature currently saying we could have better focus for you if we combine your GLP-1 with methylphenidate. So keep that in mind. Just an aside, might be something worth chatting with your provider about if you're having issues. So you get a prescription, you go to the pharmacy. What does that mean? Well, what that means is current state, I can only write a 30-day batch of prescription for you. I cannot write a 90-day fill for you. The DEA doesn't allow that. Again, if you've got issues with that, talk to the DEA, talk to your congressman. You can be an advocate for yourself beyond just at the clinic level and at the pharmacy level. You could be an advocate for yourself at a national legislative level as well. So you get a 30-day prescription, and if this is the first prescription I'm writing for you, I do write a 30-day fill. I'm a cheapskate, and the copay cost for 2 weeks is typically the same as 30 days. And so why try something for a short time if we can try something a little bit longer and have you pay the same price when you get to the pharmacy? So I get a 30-day prescription of, we talk through, what do you need? What are your thoughts after I word vomit all over you this information? And then get the prescriptions ready. I send them electronically, but I can only send 30 days. And in that 30 days, here's what I want you to watch for. The first 4 or 5 days of taking the medicine, you're going to have a dry mouth and a little bit of a headache. It's not a bad reminder. Drink more water. Don't just drink coffee all day like I do. And unless there is some kind of allergy or other medication or treatment option where you can't take them, it's okay to take some Tylenol or Motrin if you need to for your headache. If you start stimulants and you have horrific palpitations, your blood pressure goes way up, you have the worst headache of your life, stop taking them. Seek medical care. Do not continue stimulants if you're having bad issues. If you sprout purple eyebrows, that's a totally different story, and you can probably wait to talk to me about that. Send me a message, let me know what's happening, send a message to your provider, let them know what's happening. We don't expect purple eyebrows, but you don't have to race off to the ER if that's what's happening for you. Stimulants, the package insert, absolutely we'll talk about. It has the potential to raise your blood pressure and pulse, usually by about 3 to 5 points. So that's why we want to know before we start your medicine, how tall are you, how much do you weigh, what's your blood pressure, what's your pulse. Your height should not change. Your height to weight ratio, if you are too skinny, I'm less likely to start stimulants on you. If you have a BMI of 19 or less, we need to talk. You are a skinny mini, and adding something that's going to decrease your hunger, it's not going to be good for you. So height and weight, want to know that to begin with. Are you losing weight in a healthy way as you start stimulants? Or are you just not hungry and you're not getting calories and nutrients, and that's going to be a problem? Blood pressure and pulse. Want to know what those are before they get started. And if you're exercise, want to know kind of what's your resting heart rate and what's your exercise heart rate, because your exercise tolerance should not get worse on stimulants. If your heart rate goes a little bit higher when you're exercising, but comes down to your baseline resting heart rate in the same amount of time after you exercise, I'm less worried about stimulants in your body. People do tell me, except for Vyvanse, if they take a stimulant and then exercise, it doesn't last as long as if they exercise and then take the stimulant. So that's one of the things you might have to kind of coordinate in your day-to-day life of when am I going to take my pill versus when am I going to exercise. And by exercise, it's not usually a walk around the park during your lunch break. It's like, I went to Orange Theory today during my lunch break kind of exercise. Went to the gym, lifted a lot in the morning, whatever that is for you. So, let's see. This is out of order of my typical spiel for a patient, and it's way over my time limit, and so it's trying to remember, again, it's late, I'm tired, what have I missed, what have I not talked about? So we write the 30-day prescription for you, 4 or 5 days, dry mouth, a little bit of a headache, drink more water, take some Tylenol or Motrin. Don't take the medicine too late. If you take a dose of medication at 7 p.m. and you expect to get to sleep at 10 p.m., you're crazy. It's not gonna happen. You gotta do something different. Usually, don't take, so day in and day out, we're gonna pretend that this is day shift and you take your dose of medicine at whatever time in the morning. Don't take it after about 3 in the afternoon if you're trying to get to sleep. If you're working night shift, flip-flop that schedule. What's your 2 to 3 p.m. equivalent of your night shift schedule? Don't take a dose of medicine after that. Immediate release is nice for folks that are flopping between days and nights to kind of help with that transition of, I need a small dose of medicine on my first day off so that I can get rescheduled. So there are things that we consider for people who work shift work that's not consistent shift work. And I try to take into consideration, what do you do for work? What do you do for school? If you work from home and you can set a reminder and you can step away from your desk and you can go get a dose of medicine, that's totally different than if you're a paramedic in the back of an ambulance. You can't say, oh, time out, folks, my alarm just went off, I gotta take a dose of my medicine. So your life and what's happening impact what we prescribe, how we do life. So 4 or 5 days, dry mouth, headache, trying to figure out what dose do I take, when do I take it, how long does it work. It's usually the second week of stimulant medicine where you're like, oh, okay, I know what to expect. I know how long this will last. I can look at my calendar. I can know what dose to take, when to take it. And I can point to things in my life that are like, yep, this is better. This is what I figured out. This is helpful. I no longer have 100 tabs open in my brain. I have 30, and I know what to access in those 30 tabs. Those are all great things. If you figured out where to put the keys day in and day out when you get home, wallet, watch, and keys, you can find them every morning before you walk out the door, and it's not a struggle. Awesome. So excited for you. That's a big win. Celebrate that. Sometimes if you're on a stimulant and it's a new to you stimulant, the third week that you take the medicine, it can feel less effective. You are not going crazy. It's your brain's kind of starting to metabolize the medicine a little bit more effectively. And because of that, you might potentially need a little bit higher dose to either improve the percentage of focus that you have or improve the length of focus that you have. So that's why I like to follow up with people sometime between that 3 to 4 week mark. I don't want you to run out of medicine before we check in again, so don't wait longer than 4 weeks. But if you see me before 3 weeks and then we say, oh, life's great, and then your brain's like, oh, okay, love this medicine, eat it up. I want you to have that decrease in effectiveness before we check in again, if that's going to happen. It doesn't happen that often. It's not usually an issue, but if you are that person, I am still a cheapskate, and I want you to have that decrease in effectiveness if it's going to happen before we check in again. So then at check-in, want to know, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? What's your weight? What's your blood pressure? What's your pulse? Are you still stable on this dose of medicine? Are there concerns? What are you worried about? What do we need to do differently? When everything is happy and we can just get more prescriptions on file, unfortunately, we cannot send refills. No refills, and no 90 days, and not to Amazon or to Mark Cuban and their mail order pharmacies. They don't do stimulants. DEA law is I have to write a prescription for 30 days at a time, and there's no refills. It is a new prescription each month. So when you go to your pharmacy and you get it filled, chat with them. Do they automatically find next month's prescription and fill that for you? Or do you have to call them or check in on the app or text them or do some type of extra step on your end to be able to get them to pull and start filling next month's prescription? Because you'll have 3 months of prescriptions, it's helpful as a reminder on the lid of the bottle and or the calendar, circle the date where you need to call the pharmacy. So if you've got a 30-day fill and the pharmacy says call us at day 28 and we'll get the next prescription, get started on getting that filled for you, use a red Sharpie, circle day 28 on the calendar so that that is your clue and your reminder to yourself visually. Call the pharmacy, or you could set a reminder in your phone. It's okay, that works too. But figure out what will work for you to call the pharmacy, be in contact with them, and get next month's prescription filled. When you have that prescription, write 1 or 2 or 3 on the pill bottle lid so that it's not a surprise to you when you get towards the bottom of bottle 3, you need a follow-up with your provider. You need more prescriptions. So we send those prescriptions. I have been fortunate that most of the states that I work in and prescribe in, I can send post-dated prescriptions. So I can send this month's prescription, next month's prescription, and month 3's prescription to the pharmacy and have those on file. There are some states where I can't do that, and so I have to have a reminder to myself of send a new prescription 3 months from now because I can't send it ahead of time. Sometimes when you get to the pharmacy will not have enough pills to fill that month's prescription, so you will get what's called a partial fill. Let us know if that happens. The pharmacies are crazy busy and they do not have the manpower and capacity to let us know that they gave you a partial fill. So if you didn't get 30 days worth of medicine, they will give you as many as they have, and then the rest of your prescription gets canceled. So you need a new prescription so that they can fill and make up the difference of, is it 20 more days of medicine that you need, or is it 3 more days worth of medicine you need? Keep us updated if you only get a partial fill. Some people don't do well on certain generics. Sometimes the pharmacy will have on your bottle what generic manufacturer created your medicine, and sometimes they won't, but they have the capacity to know what generic they gave you. So if you're having trouble with your medicine and you're like, it's just not nearly as effective as last month and it's the pink pill instead of the orange pill, call the pharmacy. Say, what pink pill do I have? What was the orange pill? And then contact your provider and say, hey, generic orange is X and it works better than generic pink is Y. Can you clarify on my prescriptions? Send orange, not pink. And I use those as an example because it's crazy to me. 50% of the population does better on orange and 50% of the population does better on pink. So if you get one or the other, don't panic, don't be scared, don't ask the pharmacist to do something different. Try it out. It might work well for you. If it doesn't, let us know. We'll see if we can get things switched in the background. When you are on medications, there are a handful of things that it's kind of helpful to know. One is don't share your medicines. 2 is, yeah, it can raise your blood pressure and pulse, create a dry mouth, potentially cause anxiety, potentially cause irritability, especially as we get towards the higher doses. I use increased irritability as one of the metrics to measure to see if I've got you on too high of dose. If I've got you on too high of dose, your tolerance for stupid will be non-existent. You will not like yourself, and your loved ones and coworkers will say, what is wrong with you? You are being a monster. If that's happening, let your provider know, let me know, I've got you on too high a dose, let's back things off to what was the lower dose before. There are upper limits to safe doses for stimulants. In the 90s, it was a free-for-all. Some people had 300 milligrams of Ritalin prescribed to them every day, and they weighed 12 pounds, and they had no teeth, and they were homeless on the street corner, and that's not safe. There are certain limits, and above those limits, your heart attack and stroke risk increase. I don't want to put you on medicine that's going to give you a heart attack or a stroke. I want to keep you in a safe dose to help your focus and not give you a stroke. So there are limits on how much prescription you'll get from a primary care standpoint. If you go to see specialty psychiatry, they might push that limit a little bit more. But there are upper limits of medication, and we just don't prescribe above that because it's not safe for you. The other thing with stimulants is social media and ADHD do a decent job, by and large. They're good places to get information, to do research, to get community groups to be able to say, I am this age, this sex, this race, in this location, with this subtype of ADHD, employed in this sector, studying this degree, and I'm struggling with this. Can you help? Yeah. I had a patient once who couldn't understand why every time he had a loaded baked potato for lunch, his stimulants didn't work after lunch. And he got on some kind of social media and he was like, oh my gosh, carbohydrates decrease stimulant effectiveness based on this group of comments that I've looked at. Maybe I shouldn't have a loaded baked potato for lunch. Maybe I should have a loaded baked potato for dinner. And when he made that switch, his afternoon focus got better. So social media can help you sort through the good, the bad, the ugly of ADHD and treatment. My frustration with social media right now is there's a lot of conversation happening about don't have vitamin C and stimulants. The tested amount, it's in the literature, it's published, it's been tested in humans. The amount of vitamin C that you need to ingest to decrease stimulant absorption is 5,000 milligrams. That is the equivalent of 2.5 gallons of orange juice. If you are having the equivalent of 2.5 gallons of vitamin C per day, we need to talk. You've got bigger problems and bigger issues with long-term health that we need to intervene on beyond just your ADHD. So if you have vitamin C for overall health, if there's vitamin C in your multivitamin, if it's cough, cold, flu season and you're like, I'm gonna boost my vitamin C, or I'm gonna take some airborne, or I'm gonna do the things, I'm gonna go get some IV hydration with some vitamin C in it, those things are safe. It's okay, you can do that and take your stimulant and still have your stimulant work. Just limit it to 5,000 milligrams per day. I don't think we covered this. I think maybe this might be the final thing with stimulants. In order to prescribe a stimulant, I have to be licensed as a nurse practitioner and with the DEA in the state where the prescription is going. So if you are typically based in Oregon and you are on the road seeing family in North Carolina, I cannot send a prescription to North Carolina for you. I do not have a nurse practitioner license in North Carolina, and I do not have a DEA license in North Carolina. Additionally, CVS in Oregon cannot transfer that stimulant prescription to a CVS in North Carolina for you. So before you go to North Carolina, get your prescription in Oregon so that it can travel with you. I can't send a prescription to a state that I'm not licensed in. The pharmacy can't fill it, and I am at risk of losing the license in the states that I am licensed in if I'm sending prescriptions to states that I'm not licensed in. So there's lots of hoops that I have to jump through on my end, and I would love to support you traveling to all 50 states whenever you get the whim and the urge, but I'm not licensed in all 50 states, and I'm not DEA licensed in all 50 states. It's a $900 license every 3 years per state. So sorry, I haven't done it, and I don't plan on it. Let's coordinate your care. Let's make sure you get your prescriptions before you go. This might be the final thing that we need to talk about with stimulants. When you're traveling with stimulants, do not pack them in your checked luggage. Your stimulant will not make it out of the original airport you are traveling from. Your stimulants should travel in your original bottle with your name, your prescriber's name, the medicine, the dose, how often you're taking it. That bottle should stay on you as you travel. If, God forbid, you're traveling and that bottle goes missing, alert the police in whatever town you are in when you first notice it's gone missing. I don't want you to have somebody steal your medicine, sell it on down the street to somebody that dies from a fentanyl overdose or a carfentanil overdose. I don't want you to have your medicine stolen from somebody. I don't want you to have your medicine stolen by somebody who sells it on to somebody else, who sells it on to somebody else, who dies from a carfentanil overdose, but has your bottle of Adderall in their hand. Protect yourself and alert the police that your medicine is missing. What it is, how many pills were in the bottle, when you last remember having it. All of that information from the police report you can alert your provider to when you get home, and they typically will get you a new prescription to make up the difference of what you lost versus how much you need until your next fill, because they've got the police report. Sometimes accidents happen. I did have one person once who had their bottle of medicine in their pocket, and they didn't check their pockets before they washed their jeans, and they were surprised that their Adderall bottle was not waterproof. It's not waterproof. Don't send it through the wash. Check your pockets before you put your stuff in the washing machine. Your prescriptions will get wet, they will get mushy, they will mush together, and you cannot get them apart. You'll need a new prescription. So send pictures of the mushy medicines in the bottle. Give us proof that you were having an ADD moment and washed your pills. The other, I lost my train of thought with my ADD. You washed your pills, prescriptions. I think those are the main highlights for this evening. Probably all of this will create anger and heartache and lots of comments, and maybe prompt me to think of some other things that I have forgotten to include, and so we'll address those as they come in. But again, ADHD does not mean that you are a bad person, that you are not successful, that you are a second-class citizen. If you had diabetes and needed insulin to stay alive, I would not harp on you that you needed insulin to stay alive. I would prescribe you insulin, and I would work with you to coordinate on what day, based on how busy you are, based on what you ate, based on what you're trying to accomplish. What does your insulin dose for that day need to look like? I feel the same way about ADHD. What are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish? What do we need to do dosing wise with what medicine to make you successful at this time of life? If down the road you're skipping more doses of medicine than you're taking, fantastic. Let's graduate you from medicine. It's not like we took out your thyroid and you need to stay on some kind of thyroid supplement to stay alive. Stimulants and non-stimulants as an add-on treatment for your ADHD are not life-saving or critical. We don't have to have you take them every single day for you to stay alive. If they are a helpful tool for you, let's prescribe them. When they are no longer a helpful tool, let's move on from them. Let's help you be the best you that you can be. Maybe you quiet your brain down, you actually get to integrate behavioral health, lifestyle aspects and changes, and you do the best you, and you don't need medicine. Great, I love that. I celebrate that. Stimulants haven't technically been studied in pregnant women. That being said, I've had multiple women over the years who sort of forgot that they got pregnant until later in their pregnancy, and it was a little bit of a shock that you've been on these stimulants for how many months that maybe you shouldn't have been on because you've been pregnant. Fortunately, knock on wood, those babies have not had poor outcomes. So I can say accidentally from a very small N of sample that stimulants and pregnancy have not led to bad outcomes in any of my patients. Additionally, a lot of the maternal fetal medicine folks across the country are pro-stimulant. They feel like if you are doing well on a low dose of stimulant for your focus and a low dose of anti-anxiety or antidepressant, and your body is as stable as we can make it to help support your pregnancy, let's not rock the boat. Let's continue with your current medicines, and if that includes a low dose of stimulant, that includes a low dose of stimulant. I want your OBGYN and your maternal fetal medicine folks to give input on stimulants versus non-stimulants in your pregnancy. If they're okay with it, depending on what dose you're on, I might be okay with it. What has been studied in breastfeeding is Concerta. Concerta is safe for you to breastfeed for a year. They stopped studying at the year mark, so we don't know what happens at 1 year and 13 days. Probably nothing, but we don't know. So if you want to not be on stimulants while you're pregnant, great, let's figure that out. Let's try some non-stimulants. Then if you want to go back on a stimulant while you're breastfeeding, Concerta is a slam dunk. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. But again, ADHD has a tendency to run in families. So if you're on ADHD medicine and you're getting ready to have a baby, keep in mind it's potential that your child will also have ADHD. We don't typically treat kids until ADHD becomes problematic for them to be successful in school. So just because you have ADHD and you've been treated and your child has the potential genetically to have ADHD does not mean that at the time that they start preschool, we need to start treatment methodology for them. Let's wait till teacher feedback is such that they're like, did you know your child had ADHD? Should we look at medicine for them? If that's part of your parent-teacher conference, come on down. Let's fill out your Vanderbilt forms and make this evaluation happen.